I installed security cameras around the house after a series of small thefts in the neighborhood. I told my wife about them, of course, but she thought they were just for outside monitoring. What she didn't know was that one of the cameras inside had been reconnected after repairs. I didn't mention it because I honestly forgot, and part of me trusted her enough not to need it. But one evening, while reviewing the footage, I came across something that shattered me. At first, it was nothing unusual. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone, waiting for me to leave for work. I had a late meeting that day, and I left earlier than usual. The footage showed her pacing around nervously once my car pulled out of the driveway. Then, about 30 minutes later, a car I didn't recognize parked in front of the house. My heart sank before I even saw who stepped out. A man walked in confidently as if he had been there before. My wife greeted him at the door, and the way she smiled, the way she touched his arm, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't the first time. She kissed him quickly, almost desperately, before pulling him inside. I sat frozen, staring at the screen, my chest tight and my hands trembling. I didn't want to watch more, but I couldn't stop myself. They sat together, laughed together, and she leaned into him in ways she hadn't leaned into me in months. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. She looked at him the way I once dreamed she'd always look at me. That hurt more than anything. I shut the laptop for a while and just sat there, trying to breathe. Questions stormed my head. How long had this been going on? Who was he? What was I supposed to do now? But then anger began to replace the numbness. I realized this wasn't just betrayal, it was a choice she made again and again, thinking I'd never know. That night, when she came home and smiled at me as if nothing had happened, I forced myself to act normal. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be careful. I wanted to know the full truth, every detail. So I kept quiet and kept watching the footage in the days that followed. Each recording broke me a little more. It became clear this wasn't a fling. He came often, usually during my work hours. Sometimes they cooked together in my kitchen, laughed like they were the real couple. Sometimes he stayed hours, leaving just before I returned. The house I paid for, the home I built for her, had become their playground. My silence became my greatest weapon. She had no idea I knew. I gathered the recordings, backed them up, and even printed still shots. Every smile, every touch, every embrace, it was all captured. Evidence that no excuse could erase. On the outside, I pretended to be the same husband, maybe even kinder than usual. She never suspected. But inside, my heart had turned cold. I started planning, quietly, carefully, what my next move would be. Divorce wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about reclaiming my dignity and ensuring she didn't walk away with everything after tearing me apart. Weeks later, I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. When I showed him the footage, he shook his head in disbelief. "She won't have a chance in court," he said firmly. "You'll walk out of this with the house, and more." His words gave me a strength I hadn't felt in weeks. I waited for the right moment. On a calm Saturday morning, I placed my laptop on the dining table and asked her to sit. She looked confused but complied. Then I pressed play. The color drained from her face as the video began. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand to silence her. She cried, begged, and tried to explain. But the evidence spoke louder than her words. I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I just told her that I had already spoken to my lawyer and that our marriage was over. My calmness seemed to hurt her more than if I had raged. The man she thought was her secret would now be her reality, without the comfort and security of my home. She moved out within the week, taking only her clothes. The house felt quiet, but for the first time in months, I felt peace. Later, she tried to reach out, apologizing, saying it had been a mistake. But betrayal doesn't wash away with apologies. I had seen the truth with my own eyes, and that truth set me free. What shocked me wasn't just her cheating, it was how strong I became once I stopped loving someone who never truly valued me. That camera showed me pain, but it also showed me the path to freedom. And in the end, I was glad I hadn't told her it was on.